Hello, Incredible One. Welcome to the Leverage Your Incredible Factor Business Podcast, the place to be to grow a business that shakes the planet. I'm your host, spiritual business growth coach, Darnyelle J. Harmon. Join me each week for inspiring stories, powerful interviews, and business growth strategy to help you experience abundance in your life because of your business. Oh, and one more thing. On this podcast, I'm going to keep it all the way real with you about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the absolutely incredible of small business ownership. And don't worry, everything I have to share will help you to build a business that funds the life you crave. Let's jump into today's episode. You're listening to the Leverage Your Incredible Factor podcast with Darnyelle Jervey Harmon. If this is your first time joining me for the podcast, here's what I'd like for you to know about me. First and foremost, I am the absolute best at combining spiritual principles with business growth strategy to turn entrepreneurs into multiple 6- and 7-figure CEOs. Second, I don't do hustle and grind. I do spirituality and systems. And you might be wondering, what in the devil is an incredible factor? And if so, I invite you to go all the way back to the very first episode of this podcast. It's aptly titled, Exactly What is the Incredible Factor? There's even a cool worksheet that I want you to do that will help you to find yours. Oh, I will likely say some things that will make you laugh, a few things that could make you cry, and definitely make you question if you are ready to leverage your incredible factor. Remember, I'm a coach, and my job is to tell you what you don't want to hear and show you what you don't want to see, all to help you to become who God created you to be. I'm so excited that you're here. So hello, Laura Lewis. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Leverage Your Incredible Factor podcast. Why don't you do us all a quick favor and just tell everybody who you are in your own words?
What's up, everybody? I am Dr. Lewis. I teach couples how they can hit the reset button after infidelity. And so I work with couples in my private practice, Atlanta Couple Therapy, teaching them how they can have better intimacy, better communication. And then I also have another side of my business too, where I teach small business owners how they can get started speaking.
Awesome. And how long have you been in business?
I've been in business since 2012.
Okay,
Yeah,
so about 7 years. Awesome. And tell me what you feel like your biggest challenge is right now.
So my biggest challenge is moving away from like one-on-one, like trading hours for dollars. Like
Okay.
A lot of my money is made from like working with my clients, but I want to really move into premium tickets where I'm selling high ticket packages. And just the mindset around like charging some of the more premium prices, I'll be honest, it scares me a little bit. My voice starts to quiver a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I did a mastermind and it was like I charged really low for it. But now I'm like getting to a point of like I should get it at like $10,000 to charge for the mastermind. And then I want to also work with corporations. And I've seen packages like 100,000. But the idea of those words coming out of my mouth to a person or a corporation, it makes me like a little nervous.
Okay.
You know, well, like what goes into a $100,000 package? What goes into a 10,000? Like just
right.
You know.
Yeah. So let's talk about it a little bit. So first of all, let me just put you at ease. You are not alone. I think every therapist has been taught to charge for the session or for the hour of their time. Most people are running their businesses with an employee mindset. So don't feel bad. You know, we don't know what we don't know. We're doing what we're told to do. So all you've been doing has been following the system that has been told to you. Once you get a glimpse of what's possible, I have a client, Dr. Angela Grayson. She's a psychotherapist here in Delaware. And similarly, when I first started working with her, she was like maybe $80 in a session or whatever. We eventually raised it, right? And then eventually we did away with it altogether. But it took time because it's a shift that has to happen, not only in you, but also in the way you show up in your practice and presenting a different image and presentation to your clients or patients in this case, so that they can see the value that comes out of it, because for so long the world has been telling you that you just charge for the session. So so I love that you're moving in that direction. The challenge for those of you who are listening, if you haven't encountered this yet, the fact of the matter is this: when you charge by the hour, eventually you stifle the amount of success you can have financially, because there's only so many hours in a day, right? And when you do clinical work like Dr. Lewis does, you have not only the time you're seeing the patient, but then all of your follow-up and all of your record keeping and things that you need to do, that really does diminish the number of hours you actually have that you could be generating revenue. And that's the main reason why you have to stop charging by the session and start creating packages, so that you can not only get the value for your client, but also for yourself, so that you can actually start to earn more. I think one of the biggest paradigm shifts when it comes to profit and being profitable is charging more than it costs. And the charging by the hour, most people aren't truly considering what it takes for an hour of their time. They're only charging for their physical time. They're not thinking about direct costs or fixed costs or general and administrative costs or overhead, or any of those things are not factored in. They're basing their per hour on what their industry says the market will bear. And that will keep you broke. So I know your business has done about $250,000 a year. Talk to me about your goals. Where do you want your business to go?
I want my business to bring in $1 million. Okay. And I've done the math of like what I would need to sell in each package to make $1 million. Okay. But I guess it's just that I get tripped up around like the mindset of, but who can afford this? Is this something that people can afford to pay? For the different packages. I want you to write this down, and those of you who are listening too, we can afford whatever we want. So if people are choosing not to afford your products and services, it is because you have not created sense of urgency enough for them to afford it. But you can have a person who drives a Mercedes-Benz and lives in the projects because the priority for them was the car that they drive. I'm just keeping it real, right? You can have a person who lives in a studio apartment but is carrying a Chanel bag. We can afford whatever we want. Like, I always use this example. Do you have children? Okay. Well, so for those of you who are out there, children or loved one, someone takes your husband, your most amazing loved one, hostage, and they call you for a ransom. And they say, to get him back, you need to bring $50,000 in the next 24 hours. Are you going to tell them that you can't afford it? No, you're going to create $50,000 in 24 hours to go pick up your man. Well, guess what? The work that you do is exactly the same way if you position yourself correctly. So what I'm hearing you say is that the first problem you have is really a messaging problem. Because if your messaging doesn't fully support the transformation that you can provide to the clients that you serve, then people are not going to be interested in paying more than what the norm tells them it should be. So that's the first problem. Okay, so this $1 million, I know you. The messaging. Yeah, so let's talk about the breakdown of the two arms of your business. So working with the couples, you said you have an online course. It sounds like you're still doing some clinical work, as well as you host like live events and retreats for couples. Okay. Yes. And then also I have a membership site. Okay. And a membership. So tell me about the price points associated with each of those things. Okay. So I wrote it all down. Okay. The membership is $50. $50 a month? So my goal number is 250 people. Okay. And how many are in there now? Like 12. 12. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then I have so that's the membership, and then therapy. Okay. So my goal for therapy is 4 therapists seeing 20 clients each. Okay. Yeah. And then what about your live events? And then my live events, usually I do about 20 a year. So about 2 a month. Okay. And what's the price point of them? It can go anywhere from 3 to 10. And this is thousands? Like, it's something 10,000. Yeah. Okay. It's something about like selling my speaking that I'm able, like, I'm fine with putting a price tag on that. But when it comes to like more like a person buying like a mastermind ticket for 10,000, like that's where I get all this like head trash around. Like, how are they gonna pay?
So I wonder why you see couples differently than you see individuals.
I don't know.
What's the first thing that pops in when you think about telling a couple that it's going to be $10,000 to come to your retreat versus telling?
Well, no. If someone's hiring me to do a workshop, if somebody hire me to bring me in to do a workshop, I can say the price.
Okay.
But if it's a couple themselves, like a person that's saying like, "Hey, I want your services," I don't know, that thing about, can they afford it? Oh my gosh, like this is, I don't know.
Why are you projecting their checkbook? Why is that why is that your MO? So I feel like what we need to do, I'm going to sidebar for a second for those of you who are listening, and then I'm going to circle back around. So whenever I'm working with a client who has a business that has a desire to take their business to the 7-figure mark, but is struggling with raising their prices and honoring the value that they bring to the table, it can almost always be tracked back to something they experienced as a child. And I know this isn't going to be lost on you because you're a therapist and this is probably what you do all day long. Yeah. So can you remember your first recollection of money?
I definitely remember like struggles, like financial struggles, like where we just couldn't afford a lot of much of anything. Like my family, we could cover the basics, you know, like food, water, shelter, but anything that was beyond like basic survival, it wasn't money for that.
Okay. So when you think about your mastermind or any offer that you might give that would be considered high ticket, and for those of you who are listening, I consider high ticket to be anything that is $3,000 or more. So when you think about a mastermind, do you see that as a basic necessity or as a nice to have?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. You do now.
I think it's getting into the not basic necessity.
So that's your problem.
Like, it doesn't feel like food, water, shelter, survival. But like I've heard you talk about this, that you want to give people an all-inclusive experience, not just something that's going to get them by for a moment. And that's what I see a mastermind as, an all-inclusive to take them from one point to another point in their transformation. But for some reason, I just struggle with, like, I don't know if it's a worth issue or...
It is a worth issue. I'll tell you what it is. It's a worth issue. But let me ask you this. Let's consider for a moment that a mastermind is a basic necessity. So you want to help therapists build businesses and leverage speaking in order to take their business to the next level, right?
Yes.
So if they are in business like you are in business, or actually, you know what? I'm not even going to ask that question. I'm going to ask you this question instead. For your own business, to take your business to the level of $250,000, did you work with coaches and mentors to get to that point?
Oh, yeah.
And was working with those coaching and mentors a necessity to get to that point?
Yeah. I mean, it was a major investment too.
Yeah.
It was
so
like,
what if you were the same for someone else? What if you were the same for someone else? If your program was a necessity for a therapist to build a business that allowed them to generate whatever the number is. If you, what I'm getting to is, if you do not see what you do as a necessity, then that is the energy you are putting out. And all you will attract are people who do not see what you do as a necessity. And that's whether we're talking about working with a couple who has experienced infidelity and they're trying to find their ways back to each other, or we're talking about a therapist who's in private practice that really wants to do more than clinical, or, you know, go from the per session model to packages or whatever the case might be. It starts with the way you see yourself first. So I want everyone to write this down. I say this often. It kind of fell out of my mouth a few months ago, but ever since then I say it every chance I can. Until you deal with the 6 inches in between your ears, you won't feel 6 figures between your fingers. So you have a worth and deserve issue, and you have a disconnect around necessity.
Yeah, you're right. How did you go from, like, when you first told your first client what the rate was going to be and it was a premium rate?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you say that without, like, any nervousness?
No, this is a good question. So the first thing I would say, I didn't wake up like this, for those of you who are listening, right? It didn't just, from day one. I've been in business 12 years. And in the early years, my prices were low like everybody else's because I was charging by the session. I didn't know what I didn't know. But here's what's happened for me. I tell this story often. I probably have told it on other episodes of the podcast. So if you've heard it, just bear with me. But I like to talk about the first client I took to six figures. Her name is Chris. Chris came to work with me. We did one session for like $297. And it was like a 90-minute session. And at the end of that session, Chris went home and she did what I suggested that she do. And she immediately generated $11,000.
Oh, yeah, I remember this story. Yes.
Right? And that was like in a week. By the end of that 30 days, that $11,000 had grown to like $25,000 or $30,000. By the end of 90 days, that $11,000 that turned into $30,000 had turned into $102,000 in 30 days. Wow. From her doing what I did, what I told her to do. And all I had to show for it was $300. I was not happy.
Yeah.
I did not feel like I had just done a great thing and I had helped someone cross the six-figure mark. You know why? Because I hadn't crossed the six-figure mark. And so what I learned that day was really, really powerful. I want to serve clients. I want you to make more than me, but I want to be able to celebrate you and praise you because I know that the service that I rendered to you, I was paid well to deliver it. And the only way that is accomplished is through premium pricing, through seeing the value. Write this down, everyone. Transferable result. You will hear me say this 100,000 times because it is that important. Transferable result. So it's not just about getting them a one-time result. It's about teaching them something that they can use over and over. Can I tell you, to this day, Chris still has a $500,000 business. And every time I check in with her, she says, I'm still doing what you told me. Now, Chris and I did work together again. She came into a program where she paid me $10,000. Okay. Because I had, I realized that I needed to value myself more, value my services more, right? I say this all the time too. It isn't about being paid what you are worth because you are priceless, Laura. No one could ever afford you. God created you to show the world what incredible looked like. But the work that you do every single day, it does have a value. It does have a price point, and only you can assign that. So living under the misnomer that you have to be concerned about what your industry will bear or what the market will bear, that is a lie that will keep you broke in your business. I have had people, I could literally pee myself. I remember the very first, in fact, let me tell this quick story. The very first time that I had a $60,000 program. And for those of you who are listening, my clients are entrepreneurs and small business owners. I used to have a company that worked with corporations, but that was an entirely separate entity. In this business, Incredible One Enterprises, powered by Incredible Factor University, which is my coaching and consulting arm of my company, we have generated millions of dollars with entrepreneurs. Okay. The very first time that I realized that I needed to charge more, or really significantly up level. So I had hired my own coach. And I paid the coach $25,000 to be in a program that I could have had a V8, quite honestly. And not because I'm so grand and wonderful, but what she taught, I already had an understanding of, and the people that were in the room were not, it was a mastermind, but it was not people who could help me to accelerate. And I paid $25,000.
Like, how do you create a $60,000 program? Like, what is
I'm about to break it all down for you. Yeah, I'm gonna break it all down for you.
Like, that's like, I'm gonna have to get them my firstborn child for $60,000.
No, well, okay. So before I continue into the story, let's stop right here because this is a good point. It's about transferable results. So I did this program once. I had 5 people go through it, and then I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. So I don't offer it anymore. But I did have 5 people who all paid me $60,000, and 2 of those people paid me in full. One payment.
Now that's a mindset shift right there. Just to imagine that there are people in the world that exist right now that can write a write that check without here it is.
Everybody isn't broke. Everybody isn't in struggle. But if you're telling yourself that everyone is broke and everyone is in struggle, then guess what? For you, everyone will be broke and they will be in struggle. Ooh. The fact is, what I do every single day, what you desire to do for the therapist that you work with, helps people to make more money. Every client that came in and paid me $60,000 grew their business to $1 million. So to invest $60,000 to generate an additional $940,000, is that not worth it? So we're talking about a return on investment. This is not a purchase. This is not buying a bottle of water. This is doing something that is a transferable result that you can use over and over and over to continue to accelerate up the level. Now, I have one client who has been with me. She's going to her 10th year as my client. One client. She's hired me 10 times. 10 times. She does not, every time after our year is over, she renews for another year. And every year she doubles her business.
That's awesome.
So what the moral to the story, before we continue talking about how I got to this point, is you have to be clear on the value that you represent for people. Because if you teach them a transferable skill, they'll be able to use it for the rest of their life. And the reason it's a premium price.
Do that. There's been clients that have come back to me and said, I did what you taught me, and I was offered a $2,500 talk, and I renegotiated that for $4,000. And so if they can rinse and repeat it, then yes, it's transferable.
And why aren't, but then see, you can't be excited for them because they only paid you a couple $100. So you're not, so even though you want to be excited, you want to be like, oh, that's great. You're like,
you're right.
This fill in the blank. I'm not happy for you. You're mad and you're feeling some kind of way because you don't understand the value that you represent to the marketplace. So the way this changed for me is I had hired this coach that I paid $25,000. The program was less than stellar, but I paid the $25,000. I did everything. I completed the obligation. I don't have money to waste. And I'm a woman who operates in integrity. So if I sign your contract that says I'm going to pay you $25,000 and I'm going to pay you $25,000. That's how I am. I believe what you put out into the world is what you get back. But what that did, the reason why it was worth it to me is because as a result of being in her program for $25,000, I immediately created a $25,000 program because my program ran circles around hers. And so I said, if I can pay someone else this money and my program is better, then my program at least needs to be at this level. And so the year we crossed the $1 million mark, the primary reason we crossed the $1 million mark is because I up-leveled and I tripled all of my prices. Every single price, I tripled it. And was there fear that I wouldn't get people to sign up? Sure. I mean, fear is always the first thing that shows up. There's always going to be fear. It's an indication that you're on the path and you're on the verge of unleashing your incredible factor. So there's always going to be fear, but you have to move in spite of the fear. And I know that I am good at what I do. So to continue to answer your question, you create whatever you need to be constantly reminded of how good you are. So for me, that was a visual representation. I created what I call the wall of fame in my former office. I don't have one here. And on my wall of fame, I had every client testimonial. So if you go to my website, there are 288 testimonials. Wow. I only know this because I hired a branding company and they told me. But right now on my website, I have 288 testimonials, maybe a little bit more because we've added some that have not only made more money, but changed their lives as a result of working with me. That is my social proof. That is my realization of how good that I am. So when I know that 288 people have paid great money or invested in themselves through me nicely, and they have gotten amazing results, it changes the way I show up. It makes me confident. So what I say to you, Laura,
is a better job of that, of collecting the testimonials after the opportunity. After I do the talk or after I do the coaching, collect the testimonials.
Absolutely. Because that is how you're going to get the confidence. Because I say confidence is a new currency. I have had people who have hired me because of my confidence. I am damn good at what I do. I know it. And yes. And if you want to build a business that serves you, if you want to learn how to make way more money doing what you love with way less effort, you need to hire me. That's the bottom line. So when we think about you and your goal of getting to $1 million with this business and having 20 therapists or 4 therapists that are each seeing 20 patients, is it 20 a month?
20 a week.
20 per week.
So it should be about $400,000 generated at them seeing 20 clients a week at about 150.
Okay. And then so your mastermind, you want to make up what portion of that $1 million? How much do you want to generate?
I would like for it to be $10,000 a person and 2 people in the mastermind.
Okay, so you want to make $100,000 from your mastermind, $400,000 from your practice, and then the other $500,000 you want to make through corporate work?
Speaking engagements and courses.
Okay. Okay. So, and how many, no, never mind. I don't need to ask that question because this gives me that. Okay. And so, in order to make this happen, let's talk about that for a few minutes, right? So how close are you? Your current practice is doing, you said about $250,000, right?
Yeah, everything.
Oh, everything is $250,000. Okay. So what's your current, just the practice, how much of that $250,000 is coming from the practice?
I don't know. I have to look at it again. If I had to guess, I would say about 100.
Okay, about 100 is coming from your practice. Okay. And so how close are you to bringing on a therapist?
It's hard. It's hard freaking on a therapist. I guess because a lot of times when people call, I brand it myself. And so a lot of times when people call for couples therapy, they want to see me. And so I have to get into the messaging of this person is also great. And they will work with you just on the same level. And then kind of pull back from me being the front face of my company and Atlanta Couple Therapy being the brand of my company.
Correct. That's definitely going to be something that's very important. The other thing that you want to do if you haven't done yet is you need to create your own methodology. I call it your signature business move. It's a part of the Incredible Factor for those of you who are listening. If you have not listened to the very first episode of our podcast, go all the way back there and listen, because I literally answer the question, what exactly is the Incredible Factor? Once you are clear on your Incredible Factor, you can then create a system that you will utilize. It's the way that you make success predictable for your clients so that everyone can get the result. The reason why I can say we grow businesses and our clients grow between 15 to 600% in a year is because I've created this system. We use this system with every client and we watch them grow. So you need to develop a system. So on the practice side, you're going to need to develop the methodology, the framework that you in your practice and teach it to your therapist. And then, yes, you're going to need to elevate them. They need to be equal playing field with Dr. Lewis, because if not, everyone is going to continue to call and ask for you. Once you start elevating them through your copy, through your events, where you're showing up, then people will just call in and schedule. But it's just like
I think that's what I struggle with is like the SOPs, creating the standard operating procedure. That is not my strong point, like the systems around it. So maybe having some administrative person on my team that they can put, like I can verbally tell them this is how we do things, and then they put it in a written format.
Or, yes, so that's absolutely, you can do that. But let me give you another quick idea of what you can do. You can literally voice record it. So write down the steps and then guess what? Have it transcribed. You can go to rev.com for $1 a minute, have it transcribed, and then go through and edit it and tighten up any areas where it needs to be. So just as a sidebar for everyone who's listening, if you desire to scale your business, and when you are a service-based expert, the best way to scale is through hiring team. You can do some with automation, but if you're offering a service, you're going to need more people to fulfill it. And the only way you can do that is through the documentation in your systems, right? I teach that there are about 7 different systems that you need to have in place. There might even already be an episode on the podcast with those 7 systems in it. If not, it'll be coming. because we could talk about that all day, but it is going to be essential that you shift your messaging, but before you can even do any of this, you've got to create your framework and methodology. So that needs to be a homework assignment for you, a takeaway for you.
Okay.
That's going to begin to put your practice in position to be able to shift. On the mastermind side, to create a mastermind that is at $10,000 and then to enroll 10 people into it, when you are having conversations with people right now to close them, how many do you need to talk to get a yes?
I don't know.
Okay. So that's something else you're going to need to figure out. You're going to need to figure out how many people you need to talk to in order to get a yes. Okay. Because that's going to tell you your conversion rate. And then that'll tell you how many people you need to talk to enroll 10 people into your mastermind. I will tell you in general, you probably need to book about 60 conversations. And the reason why you want to book 60 conversations, you will not hold all 60, is about 50% of them will not show. They will not hold. So that means that's going to leave you with 30 conversations. If you can close 1 in 3, then in talking to and holding 30 conversations of the right people for your mastermind based on the criteria you put in place, you should enroll 10.
Okay. So 60 conversations. And I like what you do, Darnyelle, with events. Like, it's something about being live with somebody in person that, like, I love that. Like, behind the room, back of the room.
Yeah, and that is a definitely another way to do it, right? It's instead of doing individual conversations, you're doing them in a group. So you could absolutely get speaking engagements. You're going to have to get in front of therapists since they're your ideal client for your mastermind. And through that process, you could at least get them to the point where they're wanting to have a conversation with you. I would not recommend trying to do a speaking engagement and pitch a $10,000 program. Okay. And not because it can't be done, because it can be done, but it is challenging. You have to give them enough content to make it worth for you to make that their next offer and their next decision. And 9 times out of 10 in a 45-minute keynote or workshop presentation, you just haven't provided them with enough for them to feel confident in their ability to be able to invest in themselves at that level. So you want to create a progression in that point. So it might be, speaking engagement to discovery call, and then in the discovery call, you enroll them into your mastermind. But it's totally doable. But you are going to need to find out exactly what you need to do. So your second homework assignment is to understand your numbers. How many people do you need to talk to get a yes? Because I'm giving you a blanket, but it may be more. If it takes you 1 in 5 to close and you close at 20%, then that means that number is going to need to be accelerated. That means you need to book 100 conversations so that you can talk to 50 of the right people so that you can get 10 to enroll. So everything is going to be contingent upon understanding your conversion, how you convert in order to go to the level. Now, as far as the program itself and how you design it, believe it or not, for it to be worth, I've got my fingers in the air quotes for those of you who can't see, for it to be worth $10,000, it does not have to be jam-packed with stuff. Okay. That's another mistake that people make when they overfill or overcommit in programs, is because they're trying to validate the value. And you don't need to validate the value, because the value is that you are teaching them a transferable skill that they'll be able to utilize. Once you teach them once and they rinse and repeat it, they'll be able to make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, leveraging what it is that you bring to the table. So you want to definitely make sure that you think through from that standpoint. What would you want? Are you currently in, or have you participated in a mastermind? What are the things that you enjoyed about that mastermind? And you want to look and see which of those elements you could potentially bring into your own. Okay. All right. I love the group coaching, like being able to have access to the person. The done for you services, like having like just things that I don't have to like physically do myself. But I was wondering, you had mentioned selling over the phone. So you're on the phone with somebody and you're talking to them about the program, and it's time for you to say it's going to be $10,000. Like, what is that transition? There is no transition. It's the same conversation. So this is good too. And I know I definitely will do a whole nother podcast about selling because I'm probably going to make it sound really simple and it may not be that simple for you, but it's the same conversation. So if you set up your sales conversation or your discovery call the right way, it's the natural progression, right? So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to set expectations for the call, right? So we're on the phone today to talk specifically about your business and your challenges. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what you want instead. We're going to talk about the gap that currently exists. And then if we decide that moving together to fill that gap is the next best step for you, I will invite you to hire me to help you to fill the gap. How does that sound? That's the first part. The second phase is you really understanding what's going on. So you're asking them questions to get a clear understanding of the challenges that they have. I call this discovering the cost of the problem. If you are unable to discover how much it's costing them to have this problem, you're not going to be able to close them to solve it. It's just not going to happen. So that's the second phase. After you discover the cost of the problem, you summarize. So what I just heard you say is that your biggest problem is X. What you want instead is Y. And the things that are keeping you from it are Z. Did I miss anything? And then you say, well, now I would love to talk about how I can help you. Would you like my help? In fact, repeat that after me, Laura. Would you like my help?
Would you like my help?
It's that simple.
Yes.
They're going to say yes, right? They're going to say yes, they would like your help. And then you start talking to them about the option that you've created that you believe will solve their problem the best way. In this case, your mastermind. So I've created the Laura Lewis Mastermind. It's a 12-month program. It's 10 women. Over the course of the year, I'm going to teach 10 therapists how to build their business leveraging speaking. And the average therapist at the end of the year will have generated an additional 6 figures in their business. Mm-hmm. Are there any questions that I can answer for you about the mastermind before we talk about the investment? And then you take questions because they might want to know some of the programmatic things that you didn't talk about. I want you to notice I didn't talk programmatically. I gave the benefit statement of the program. Mm-hmm. Most people don't care how many calls they get, they don't care about that stuff. They care about the end result, what's in it for them. And then, so they ask whatever questions they ask. And then you say, once they say, no, they have no more questions. Okay, great. The investment to enroll in the mastermind is $10,000. How would you like to get started today?
That was smooth. That was really smooth. Yeah. You're good, Darnyelle.
Well, of course I am. Thank you. But so here's where the disconnect comes for people. I call this creating a diversion. So when you're in a sales conversation, if you feel like the sales part is different than the getting to know them part, you feel like you have to become someone different in order to tell them that it's going to be a cost. Yeah. But it's the same conversation. So instead of creating a diversion by clearing your throat or, pretending like someone's asking you a question, just keep moving in the conversation. I write this down. And those of you who are listening, I want you to write this down too. The invitation is your validation. The fact that they have accepted your invitation to have a conversation with you is validation that they see you as the solution to the answer to their problem. So the conversation is a formality for them to hire you. Now, yes, you are going to have to overcome objections. I say all the time, the sale does not even start until you get an objection. Mm-hmm. If someone just says, okay, how do I pay? Then you didn't really sell anything. You just had a conversation. But if someone says, when I say it's $10,000 for you to enroll, how would you like to get started? And they say, oh, well, that's more than I thought it was going to be. Now you have an objection. So now you work through the objection. So you have to overcome the objection. And you're going to have to practice this. If you get a script, someone gives you a script that you can use for discovery sessions and you don't practice it and you just pull it out right before you have a call and you try to go through it, you're going to fail. You are not going to fail. Yeah. You have to practice and master. That's a big part of coaching. Like it's one of the things inside of my program. We spend a lot of time on speaking and sales because those are the two big things that you need to be able to do in order to get conversion. And you have to master it. It takes a lot of time. And to take us all the way back to what you said at the very beginning of our time together, if you do not believe that what it is you are offering is a necessity, you will not be in the mindset to enroll them because there is a mindset to enroll. You have to understand the value that it is that you put on the table. But honestly, getting your business to $1 million, it does not have to be hard. You need to think in terms of the progression, right? You need to generate leads. So be clear on how you're generating leads. Be clear on how you're qualifying those leads and turning them into prospects. Be clear about the sales tool that you're using in order to have them enroll, and then have your onboarding process in place to be able to enroll your new clients. It really is and can be that system. Simple, excuse me. But the big thing for you, Laura, is that you're really going to have to do some work right here so that you understand that you are valuable, what you teach is transferable, and that their lives and their businesses will be different because you offered it to them. Do you feel like you've gotten enough information to make over your business today?
Yes, I just want to say you are so amazing. Like, I really appreciate all of what you do. Coming to the first event when you came to Atlanta, I was like, wow, this chick is like, she knows her stuff. And
Thank you.
Meeting with you now, like, I just love everything. Like, I love the way you really incorporate mindset and spirituality into what you do. And so I just want to say thank you.
You are so very welcome. Well, there you have it, folks. A business makeover here on the Leverage Your Incredible Factor podcast. If you would like to have your business made over, then you want to go to incrediblefactorpodcast.com and apply. Again, that's incrediblefactorpodcast.com. Apply, because I too would love to make over your business. Thank you for joining me for the Leverage Your Incredible Factor Business Podcast. I'd really love to help you grow a business that funds the life you crave while doing work that shakes the planet. Get started today by applying for a discovery session with me or a member of my team at darnyelle.com/session. And if you enjoyed our time together, do yourself a favor. Head on over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Until next time, remember, you do deserve a business that funds the life you crave. Take care.